So today is a very important day. We're celebrating the Day of the Seafarer. And I think one of the big challenges that we're seeing with seafarers today is that obviously we're not attracting enough talent to the industry, and we're not probably marketing our position and our story as a shipping sector as vividly, as excitingly, and as sexily as we can. And we do have a great story to tell. So today I'm joined here on this LinkedIn Live post with Carl King, who is the founder of Seafarers Social. He is actually committed and on a mission, from what I understand, to support businesses connect with the next generation of seafarers through digital marketing. So he is a maritime marketing consultant with a focus on human capital management and talent attraction, especially in respect to seafarers. He'll tell us all about it. He also hosts his own podcast, the Seafarers Social podcast, and he talks only to seafarers. And he has lived in the Philippines, which probably gave him a lot of exposure and understanding of how the next generation of seafarer works, what they want out of the industry, and how we can master it. I'm Gina Panayotou. I'm the host of this live broadcast, and welcome, Carl, to this show as we celebrate the Day of the Seafarer today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Gina. As you said, this is a very important day for the seafarers out there, and I'm honored to be spending it speaking to you.
Fantastic. So we're going to try and keep it short with some concrete advice for people, I think. So I'll shoot with the first question. Social media for the shipping world, is it mandatory, nice to have, and why?
Well, I think as time goes on, it's definitely becoming mandatory. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at every other industry in the world, they have adapted to the digital marketing wave that the world has moved towards. I understand why the shipping has had a slow approach towards digital marketing and social media, but I think that where shipping is such a focus point around human capital management, the people behind the work, everybody wants to be connected nowadays. You're dealing with a labor market that have families from all over the world, an international labor market, and the fact that we can all be connected digitally, I think it almost becomes a human right. So I would say, although it's not legally mandatory, I think ethically it should be mandatory.
I couldn't agree more. Next question would be, do you think we're getting it right? If we are getting anything right, basically, and if so, are there any good examples you can direct us to? And what are we getting wrong?
It's a great question. So I think in terms of getting things right, one of the best case studies out there is Maersk. If you look at the social media page, specifically on Instagram, the strategy is very much focused around the seafarer. There are other shipping companies that have good social media strategies, but a lot of them focus around sort of the B2B marketing, so the trade shows, the corporate dinners, and these things are nice, but seafarers can't necessarily connect with that. Yeah. I think that social media should be focused around providing value, and I think Maersk do that really well. In terms of things maybe we're not doing so well, and perhaps this isn't something that we can necessarily control, but given the nature of the industry, obviously 99.9% of the time when a story comes out about shipping, it does tend to be negative, whether it's war, whether it's an accident, something chaotic has happened, and that makes the headlines. Now, I don't think that will ever stop, just because of the nature of the beast. However, what I would say is that I think we could do more to counterbalance those negative stories with positive stories. And I think Maersk are a great example of a company that are doing that really well. But it can be done on the small to medium sized businesses, on a really high value proposition scale as well.
Definitely, 100%. I think one of the things that stuck with me when I was doing emergency response media training, they said it's very important to have a consistent and good and positive storyline. So then when something does go wrong, it's not the only thing popping up in people's feed. So that's a very important point. You mentioned Maersk as a great example of social media, and you said that one of the reasons is because they highlight the seafarer and the role, basically. How important should the role of the seafarer be in the shipping world's social media strategies?
I think it should be the number one element. I mean, if you look, so take a step back, if we look at other industries and look at some of the big brands in the world, very rarely, so Red Bull, for example, Very rarely does Red Bull ever promote the energy drink. They promote the feeling around the brand. And I think the feeling around shipping companies are the human capital management side of it, the seafarers themselves. They are the guys and girls that are making our global economy run, essentially. And I think that we should be doing much more with that part, because they are the people we should be promoting. Without them, the world would literally stop. So I think seafarers should be at the core part of every shipping company's social media strategy.
Very important point there, of course. And I mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast that one of the challenges, and I think it's undoubtedly one of our greatest challenges, is attracting the younger generation, especially to the maritime industry, but especially so when it comes to seafarers. How do you, I know you touched upon it a little bit in how it will resonate with seafarers, but maybe you can expand a bit more on how social media can be utilized to address this issue. And maybe also if you can touch a bit on the gender element. I mean, it's no surprise there's less than 2% of females on board. So is there a way that we can really utilize social media to fix some of these problems or improve them?
We totally can. And there's a fantastic case study that I can share with you. So the most followed seafarer on social media is in fact a lady called Captain Kate from Celebrity Cruises. And she has been a fantastic role model for many female seafarers, not just female, in fact, male seafarers as well. And I think she is a great example, in fact, of what we can do with social media when we get it right. You know, she's part of that 2%, and she is a captain. And she has also gained, like I said, the highest amount of followers online. So I think that what we should focus on is encouraging seafarers that want to be creative. Because what I've found when I speak to seafarer influencers is they say, my shipping company is okay with me posting because they can see the amount of followers I have. But when I speak to maybe some of the ratings, etc., and new cadets coming through, they perhaps don't get the same encouragement that those who already have the follower base get, because it's a risk, right? Is this person going to put something out? So I think that actually what we should do as an industry, and one thing that I'm focused on massively when it comes to Seafarer Social, is working with these seafarer influencers. Because if you look at every single industry, 99.9% of the time, the reason why people enter it is because of a role model. It's because they saw somebody who inspired them to then go on and apply to be part of that industry. There are lots of these role models out there from every major labor market, from the Philippines all the way to the US to Eastern Europe. There's fantastic role models out there. I think that shipping companies should do more work with these influencers because they have more power than perhaps they understand.
That's such an interesting point, especially so because I think it touches upon also maybe the new need, the new need for a different kind of leadership within organizations who actually acknowledge, for one, how important influencers can be in this respect, the greatest ambassadors. But also, I think on the other level, I mean, you're talking about Gen Zs and younger who are going to be on social media anyway. So why not train them in a way that you're making sure that they can support your brand even better? This probably leads to my next question. So if you were sitting next to the CEO of one of the larger company and it wasn't Musk, it was somebody who's not getting it so right, maybe, what would you say to convince them of the role of social media in shipping?
Well, from my experience of speaking to CEOs within the shipping industry, you know, without generalizing, 99.9% of the time, the two things they want to talk about is policies and profit. And it makes sense, right? Everybody needs to make money, and the shipping companies do make a lot of money, but it's an industry where if things go wrong, things can go wrong very quickly. And that's why I understand why that's really important, to make sure that we're always focusing around those two pieces. But what I would say is, so when you go to these events around the world, you're hearing people talk about digitization more. You're hearing people talk about human capital management more. You're hearing people talk about recruitment crisis more. And one of the things I see every time I go to these events is that there are always these brand new softwares that are trying to be sold to these shipping companies. This one can, help your labor market improve by this amount, and this can help recruitment. And this, my theory is quite simple. Instead of trying to introduce new technology to seafarers, why don't we focus on the platforms we know they're using already? Because if you open a seafarer's phone and you look at their screen time, it probably looks very similar to mine. It probably looks very similar to yours. They're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube. So before a CEO starts thinking about, yeah, let's buy this, let's try this new software, let's adapt this new SaaS model, focus on the platforms you know your workforce are using already, master them, and then introduce these new technologies that you pay loads of money for. And I would also say, on top of that, as another tip, I think that the industry should look to hire people from outside of maritime a lot more, especially from the creative world. I think if you look towards the advertising world, for example, there's a lot of fantastic individuals that can do great work when it comes to recruitment and human capital management. And I'll give you a great example. Look at the Royal Navy in the UK. They spend millions and millions of pounds on recruitment. They don't always get it right. Okay. However, you can see digitally that they are doing a huge leap forward compared to the merchant navy world, for example. And I think that we could definitely take a leaf out of their book.
That's always so important, especially now, and generally, even if we take it outside the marketing world. I mean, we need innovation to reach the other challenges that the industry is facing, like decarbonization and solutions. So you do really need talented people who have other experiences also, and they can bring it back to the sector and help us grow. On this final question, I talked a bit about the new era of leadership, and I truly feel that our newly elected Secretary General is really that new era of leadership. He's doing things differently. He has also said that and has highlighted that one of his main targets is to make the industry more visible, acknowledged for the value that it brings to the world, and especially that role of seafarers. So say if you could give him one piece of advice on how to do it, what would that be?
From a micro perspective, I would just basically emphasize what I've already said so far. Focus on creating social media strategies led by those from creative fields, working with role models within the industry, aka seafarer influencers, because that can be done at a relatively affordable scale with huge results. Now, from a macro perspective, and this has got my advertising marketing hat on, I've always had this idea, and I spoke to a chap in America called Jason, and he's been in the industry for a very long time. And I shared this idea of him where I said, if an organization like IMO came along and said to all the shipping companies, I think you should all put a load of money into one big pot, and with this money, we should go out and create we should hire a production company, and we should create some sort of docu-series which focuses on all of the major labor markets, so Philippines, India, Ukraine, blah blah blah, and we should film and capture the raw footage of seafarers, cadets, and what they're who, what, where, when, and why is. You know, why they go into the industry, what inspired them, how they got there. Because I think by doing that, we could actually do exactly what he said he'd like to do, which is broaden the gap between the wider public and the maritime industry. So that's, wishful thinking, I know, but from a macro perspective, I think that is something that would be awesome to do, and I'd love to be part of that. But you can also do stuff, like I said, from a micro perspective, create social media strategies, hire people from creative fields, and use influential individuals within the industry already.
Very valid points. That's actually a fantastic idea, and let's see if they take you up on that challenge. I really hope they do. It would be really nice to see. We are very visual as a world, and that's probably the best way to get that true story across. On that note, thank you very much, Carl, for being with us today and celebrating the Day of the Seafarer with me and sharing your knowledge and insights on how to make it a better industry for them, but also for us. And thanks for being with us. Thanks to everybody for watching, and happy Day of the Seafarer.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, everybody. And happy Day of the Seafarer. And if you get the chance, check out the Seafarer Social Podcast.